today I've got a book wrap up, which literally no one asked for, and which I was originally not going to do because I felt like I didn't really know how to talk about books. And to be fair, I don't. But as it turns out, I do have quite a lot of thoughts and opinions, some of them controversial. Y'all are gonna hate me when we get to the perfect marriage, so please don't cancel me. But if you don't know, I used to have a movie review channel in college before this channel, so I thought it would be kind of fun to experiment with book wrap-ups. And if this is something y'all enjoy, I can definitely do more in the future. So anyway, I'm just gonna go from best to worst, and there will be chapters or timestamps or whatever if you want to skip around, and everything will be spoiler free unless otherwise noted in the timestamp. So yeah, we've got just a big old stack of everything I've read over the past couple months. Again, we're gonna go from best to worst. So of course, we've got to start with Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid first and absolutely foremost. So Daisy Jones and the Six follows the band Daisy Jones and the Six on their whirlwind meteoric rise to stardom in the 70s, and at the height of it all they just abruptly split in the middle of their sold-out tour, and no one ever knew why until now. I was gonna start out by saying this is my new favorite book of all time. It's officially knocked The Outsiders and The Perks of Being a Wallflower out of my top spot. It's obviously a 5-star for me, but honestly, even 5 feels low. If someone tells me they gave it a 5, I'm like, well, why did you hate it? Like, 5 just seems so low because, I don't know, it's like a 10-star book in my opinion. But yeah, I would sell my soul to be able to watch Almost Famous again for the first time, and reading Daisy Jones and the Six is the closest that I will ever get, and that is the absolute highest praise that I can personally give a piece of media. It's very, very hard not to compare it to Almost Famous, even though they're not related at all. But it is a perfect companion piece, and if you love one, you're going to love the other. It's written in an oral history format, so it's all just interview dialogue, which I know won't work for everyone, but for me, it made for a very fast, very engaging read. I also really loved the unreliable narrator aspect. I think it added such interesting layers because even though everyone is recounting what happened, how they remember it, it was, like 40 years ago, and everything's a little hazy, and characters remember and interpret things differently, and it's up to us as the reader to kind of decide for ourselves where we think the truth lies. Sorry, I have COVID for the first time right now and I'm kind of dying, so I'm having to pause for a lot of water breaks, so sorry if this video is jumpy, but Taylor Jenkins Reid just captures the essence and the spirit of the 70s and the 70s rock scene just so masterfully. The highs, the lows, the sex, the drugs, the rock and roll, and everything in between. It's all there and you feel every bit of it. The band, these characters, everything just feels so real. There were so many times when I would put the book down to Google things about the band or to listen to a song before remembering it's not real. I loved every single character. Even when I hated them, I still loved them. They aren't perfect. They aren't always likable. They're messy, they're jagged, but they're just also well fleshed out and feel so lived in and so real. And the women characters in this would die for all of them. Daisy, Camila, Karen, Simone, they're all just such strong, cool, badass women. This book is just so raw and real and heartbreaking. I laughed, I cried, and felt every emotion in between. There were some moments that were just such a gut punch that I still get misty-eyed whenever I think or talk about them. So in short, Daisy Jones and the Six is this beautifully crafted, intoxicating whirlwind masterpiece that just sucks you in and fully immerses you. I felt like I had an actual hangover when I finished reading this that took like a week to come down from. And not to be dramatic, but it changed my life in the same way that Almost Famous did. And I will absolutely be making it my entire personality for the rest of my life. And I just don't see how any other book could ever top it. I love it with my whole heart and soul. I haven't listened to the audiobook yet, but I've heard only incredible things, and I know that it's just gonna ruin my life all over again. So yeah, this is a 10 out of 5 stars, perfect book, no notes, highly recommend. Next up we have The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which was our January book club book, and it follows Avery, an average high schooler living with her older sister, trying to make ends meet, and one day she just gets pulled out of class and is informed that this random old billionaire died and left her everything, and she has to move into the estate and work with his 4 grandsons who were disinherited to figure out why her through a series of riddles and games. And first of all, I just loved this book. I gave it a 4.75. It was very close to being a 5, but you know, I've got to save those for the Daisy Joneses of the world. But The Inheritance Games was just delightful from start to finish. As everyone says, if you like Knives Out, you'll love this. It's fast-paced, it's twisty. I figured out some of the twists, including like the big one, but like I didn't even care because it was such a fun ride from start to finish. And they were really satisfying twists too. I enjoyed all the characters. I found the dynamics really interesting. But like honestly, the best word to describe The Inheritance Games is just fun. I loved being in this world and I had a great time with this book and am very, very looking forward to the next one. So yeah, that is everything for The Inheritance Games, I think. Next up we have There's Someone Inside Your House, which was also a book club book for us, and it is by Stephanie Perkins. It follows Makani, a high schooler who lives with her grandma in a quiet, is it Nebraska? Yeah, Nebraska, in a quiet Nebraskan town after an event drives her out of her Hawaiian hometown. And as she's trying to start fresh and escape her past, her classmates start getting murdered and it turns into a full classic slasher story. And I quite enjoyed this one as well. I gave it a 4.5. I will say though that I've never really read horror, so I don't have a baseline to really compare it to, but I had a really, really fun time with this. I liked the characters. They felt real and lived in. They were well developed. They had really good chemistry, and not just like the romantic leads. The friendship chemistry was really solid as well, and I felt like there was really good representation in this. I thought it had a really good balance of horror and romance. It was really moody and atmospheric, and I think Perkins did a really good job painting the picture of this town and what life was like there. I don't know if y'all have ever seen the movie The Guest, but the vibe of this reminded me a lot of The Guest, like where it's a very atmospheric thriller and you can feel the spooky tension lingering, but it's not really scary. Simultaneously fast-paced, but also a nice, good, slow burn. I will say the murders are kind of gory, so just be aware of that if you're queasy. The word squelched is used several times, so, you know, do with that what you will. So for the negatives, I clocked the killer right away, and then their motivations were so dumb, and I was annoyed. And then also, Makani's secret was just literally not even that serious. It was absolutely not the kind of thing that you need to flee the state and start a new life over. But for me, the issues I had with it didn't really take away from the enjoyment. So that's why I still rated it so high. I've got to change my battery really quickly, and then we'll be back with Challenge by Amy Dawes. This book is clearly a smutty soccer romance. Look, don't judge me. I needed something to fill the void during the MLS off-season, which for the crew was quite long last season, LOL. And this book did the trick pretty well, not gonna lie. So, Challenge is the first book in the Harris Brothers series, and in it we follow Camden Harris, a Playboy footballer in London, and Indy Porter, the surgeon assigned to him when he tears his ACL in a season-ending, potentially career-ending injury. You know, this book actually surprised me. I gave it a 4 for what it is. But like, okay, realistically, it's probably a 3, let's be honest here, but I did enjoy it quite a lot. It was surprisingly funny, and I can't tell if that was intended or not, to be honest. Like, I was just full on cackling during the spicy scenes. I can't really gauge the spice though because I've never really read smut before, so I don't have anything to compare it to, but the spicy scenes were just so fucking funny to me. But like, I was also genuinely laughing at other parts of the book too. Parts of it are really misogynistic and problematic and gross, but other parts are like genuinely sweet and tender. And I do like the chemistry that Indy and Cam have. I think they're really cute together. And I did find myself genuinely rooting for them. I feel like they both grow a lot during the story as well, so I would say the book does have some pretty solid character development too. But surprisingly, what I enjoyed most about this book and what I found most interesting was the Harris family dynamic. It was really interesting to see how soccer and the love of the beautiful game shaped their lives and relationships with each other, and how these events maybe shifted their perspective on things. But overall, they just had such an interesting layered dynamic that I loved getting to explore, and I hope the rest of the books dive more into that dynamic. Okay, so next I have Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry, which was our March book club book, and it follows Viv, an orc who decides to leave her life of adventure and bloodshed behind her. And she has big dreams of opening a coffee shop and starting over fresh with a simpler, calmer life in a town where no one knows her. And of course, there are bumps along the way. One being that no one in the town has ever even heard of coffee. But, you know, she quickly assembles a cute little ragtag team of friends who really help her get this coffee shop up and running. So this is a cozy slice of life fantasy, which I didn't know existed and didn't know I needed. Not much happens because it is so slice of lifey. But if you love getting a snapshot of the mundane, of people just living their lives and like the quiet, simple moments, you're probably really going to enjoy this. I personally love slice of life shit, so I was thriving reading this. I enjoyed it so much. It's just so sweet and cozy. It's like a cup of hot tea and a hug, and it's just comforting and heartwarming and refreshing. There's something very calming about it, so I think it's a good read if you need a change of pace. I struggled with the actual star rating though, because 3.75 feels low, but 4 feels a little high, so it's somewhere in that range, but I quite enjoyed it, and I will absolutely be reading. I think it's called Bookshops and Bone Dust whenever that comes out, so that's that. And then next up we have The Sun Down Motel by Simone St. James. So the Sun Down Motel was an interesting one. I gave it 3 stars, and it takes place in 2 different time periods. I think 1982 and 2017. So in 1982, we have Viv, who is a small town girl with big city dreams, and in order to save up for her big move to New York City, she takes a job as a night clerk at the Sun Down Motel in the upstate New York town of Fell. And one night she disappears from the motel under mysterious circumstances and is never seen again. And decades later, in 2017, her niece moves to Fell and takes a job at the same motel to try to find answers and ultimately figure out what happened to her aunt. And she quickly finds herself swept up in the same mysteries. So yeah, this one was interesting. I really liked the story. The premise is super intriguing. It was atmospheric, a little spooky at times. This one was another dual POV, which is something I normally really enjoy, but it didn't quite work for me in this one. Essentially, Viv would experience something in 1982, and then the next chapter would be Carly discovering what Viv had experienced. So as a reader, we're taking in the exact same information twice in a row the entire book. And for some stuff, it was really cool to see Carly discovering it after Viv had lived it, but it did get quite repetitive quite quickly. It had some cool twists and turns. It's a little predictable, but it's a pretty fun read, so I didn't really mind the predictability. So yeah, I thought it was overall pretty decent. I'm not mad at it, and would definitely be down to read more by Simone St. James. I'm not sure what else she's written. I'm sure she's written other things. Oh yeah, The Broken Girls, don't know what that is, but would definitely be down to check that out. Next we have The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. And I'm low-key scared to put this on the internet, but you know, I need to speak my truth, okay? And oh boy, I have thoughts. I ultimately gave this 1 star, which I know is controversial and I'm probably about to get canceled, but I'm gonna be honest with y'all, the more I think about it, the lower my rating goes. I'm gonna give my spoiler-free thoughts first, of course. However, I feel like I do need to talk about the spoilers to fully explain my rating, so just check the timestamps if you want to avoid spoilers. So, in The Perfect Marriage, we have Adam Morgan, who is a struggling writer, and his wife, Sarah, who is a hotshot, high-profile defense attorney. And she's always prioritized her career above everything else, which is why she's the best in the game. But with that comes a husband who kind of becomes an afterthought. And then instead of talking about his feelings like a big boy, he gets a mistress, Kelly Summers, who winds up stabbed to death in his bed. And, you know, things just aren't really looking too great for Adam. And because Sarah is the best of the best, of course, she takes on his defense case. So, I will preface this by saying, I get why people like this book. It's twisty, it's relatively engaging, it does a good job of pulling you in different directions and diverting your attention. It gets right to the action pretty quickly. The super short chapters and dual POV make it a really quick read. So I get the appeal. I really, really do get the appeal. But it just did nothing for me personally other than make me rage and roll my eyes into oblivion. Like, even though it was a quick read, it was so painful to get through. It took me so long to read this for no reason. And I know the end is a jaw dropper for a lot of people, so I don't want to call it predictable, but it was so painfully obviously predictable. And that could just be a me thing as someone with ADHD whose wheels are always turning, but I really truly don't think it's that hard to connect the dots if you're really, really paying attention. And I'm so mad at the ending too. And it's not at the big reveal because that was like, whatever. I'm talking about the unnecessary reveals on like the last 2 pages. It's just shock value for shock value's sake and added nothing, not a single thing to the story. It was so forced and contrived, and I have just never rolled my eyes so hard in my entire life reading the last couple pages. And also, everyone in this book is just so unlikable. None of them have any redeeming qualities, and some of them just keep making the stupidest, dumbest decisions over and over and over. And it was just so grating. Like, I just wanted to reach through the pages and shake them. And the book was just simply way too long. It was so repetitive that it could easily have been 75 pages shorter, and like nothing pertinent would have been lost. And I wish we would have gotten to see more of the trial. Like, the whole book was this build up to the trial, and then literally all we get was the opening statement. Like, the bones for a really great story were there, but the execution was just unfortunately nowhere to be found. Okay, so getting into the spoilers, I guess I should also say that this is going to contain spoilers, I suppose, for a certain movie starring Ben Affleck and Rosamund Pike. So if you have not seen that or read the book or whatever, just don't listen to me right now. Okay, so the entire time that I was reading The Perfect Marriage, I just kept thinking how much Gone Girl energy it had. So Sarah being the killer was quite obvious to me from the jump, and I just kept reading, hoping it wasn't her, and was so incredibly disappointed that it was. So many people say it came out of left field and that the signs weren't there, but I feel like they totally were. Like the way that she immediately inserted herself in the investigation, and the way we were expected to believe she wouldn't recognize Anne's handwriting, the way she found out who the third set of DNA belonged to, and then just didn't reveal it until the end. Like, all the signs were there, and the fact that she did all of these theatrics just so he wouldn't get half of her money in the divorce. Like, and her being such a brilliant, talented lawyer and not even having the foresight to get a prenup is so unbelievably unrealistic. And the book just fully jumped the shark for me when Adam escaped jail. Like, that was just so beyond unserious. It was just so unintentionally funny. And then the cherry on top of the cake of my rage was her ending up with Bob, and then them naming their daughter Summer after Kelly, and then it being revealed that she's actually the one who killed her mom. And all of that was just so shoehorned in and so unnecessary and just in there for the shock value, and in my opinion just cheapened an already weak story. She was going for a huge Gone Girl type reveal and it just fell totally flat. So yeah, I think that's everything that I have to say about The Perfect Marriage. Really just did not have a good time with this one. So yeah, also Popsicle was like trying to chew it up, and like low-key I almost let her, but like I needed it to film this video. I mean, like, also I shouldn't like let her chew up books, but like, you know what I mean. Like, if it wasn't gonna teach her bad habits, I would let her chew this up in a fucking heartbeat. I just hate this book. So that's that. Oh, all of that said, even though like I just did not vibe with this book at all, for some reason unbeknownst to me, I do kind of want to read her new book. I think it's called You Shouldn't Have Come Here. So yeah, I'll keep you posted on that. So finally, we have a book that I somehow hated even more than The Perfect Marriage, which is Horror Hotel by Victoria Fulton and Faith McLaren. So this book follows the Ghost Gang, which is a group of teenage paranormal investigator influencers, and it follows them as they spend the weekend ghost hunting at an infamous seedy LA hotel, clearly inspired by the Cecil Hotel. And not to be rude, but I gave this book a 0.5. The positives, it has pretty decent representation and it's decently fast-paced and the cover is really sick. The cons, literally everything else. One of my biggest issues is that the authors are just so painfully out of touch with the subject material. They're writing Gen Z characters without having an actual grasp on how Gen Zs speak and act. And they're writing about social media with a very dated lens almost. And because the dialogue and perspectives are just so unrealistic for younger people, it's jarring and distracting and fully pulls you out of the story. Like, I actually put this line in the buddy read that we did for this book on Storygraph because it was just so shockingly unbelievable that they would have a 17-year-old boy describing another character's outfit as a hot pink sweatsuit with iridescent tiger stripes, bedazzled sunglasses, and kaleidoscope pigtails, a rainbow spectacle. Like, be serious. Be serious. A teenage boy would not know what a single one of those words means. Like, I need them to be serious. Also, it's a 4-person POV, but none of them, not a single one of them, has a distinct voice. So I was constantly having to flip back to the first page of the chapter to see whose POV it was. And the killer was just so obvious because there were only a few side characters introduced. So, like, who else would it be? There's also a whole storyline that's a carbon copy of Elisa Lam's story, and I don't know, I just found that incredibly distasteful and disrespectful and exploitative. I mean, really, the whole book is just sensationalizing the tragedies of the Cecil Hotel, which is just weird and uncomfortable. And even within the Ghost Gang, one of them has paranormal abilities and they just fully exploit and make a spectacle of her just for the views. So I don't know. it felt icky and it just really rubbed me the wrong way. So at the end, they go through this huge, harrowing, life-changing, traumatic experience, and none of them learn a damn thing from it. There's no character development, just no point. So yeah, I just really did not like this book at all, and I feel so bad giving it such a bad review, but to me, it just truly had not a single redeeming quality. That is going to wrap this book wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you've read any of these books, feel free to let me know what you thought of them. Would love to talk about them with you. And if you guys like this, I can definitely do more. It probably won't be a monthly thing because I'm kind of a slow reader, so I read like 2 books max a month on average. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and hanging out today. I will have my March sticker haul up hopefully this week. It's delayed because of the whole COVID thing, so hope y'all understand. And I'm hoping to also have a book haul up sometime soon. So yeah, thank you again for hanging out today, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye. Ew, that felt so weird to say bye. Okay, later days.